I recently came across this article published just last year in 2025 titled, "The Phenomenon of Toxic Masculinity on Violence in a Romantic Relationship Status." And I wanted to share it because it's so blatantly anti-male and a perfect example of the current academic research landscape. But before I get into the study, I want to mention a couple of things about this channel's direction for members and regular viewers. If you're not interested in this update, feel free to use the chapters and skip ahead. As the channel enters its second year coming up here in a couple of weeks, I'm turning this from a passion project with some growth potential into a more formal content system. My timeline has changed, and I'm going to be much more intentional about growing the channel, increasing support, and reaching people across other platforms. So here on YouTube, that means more regular content, possibly near daily. I still plan to keep the Sunday deep dives, the research reviews like this one that I'll be doing here, and discussions about how psychology and men's issues are playing out in real time, but I'll be doing more of it. I've also started converting some of my video work and my content into written articles on Substack, which I expect to start making available in the next week or two, so look for that coming soon. I'll also be making some changes to YouTube memberships as I simplify the tiers and give members more consistent value. And I'll be paying closer attention to Patreon as another place for people who want to support my work and get additional materials over time. For those of you who are already on Patreon, thank you for being there. For members and regular viewers who are interested, I'll be streaming tomorrow, Saturday, May 30th at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. That's New York and Miami time. And what I want to do is talk more about these changes and do something like an AMA. So as the channel goes in and moving into year 2, just kind of talk about some of those things. I've already scheduled that stream, and there's a link in the description and a pinned comment, so you can go there and click to get notified when it starts. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the study. This is an Indonesian study, but the research pattern is similar to broader Western academic trends here in the US and elsewhere. Men's harmful behavior is interpreted through large cultural theories like patriarchy, toxic masculinity, and others, while women's harmful behavior toward men is less often given the same theoretical seriousness. This study assessed what the authors call toxic masculinity in romantic relationship violence among young Indonesian women. They used a qualitative phenomenological design. So they were not testing any statistical hypotheses here. In a nutshell, they interviewed women about their lived experience and interpreted those experiences through a theoretical framework. The study included 5 female participants ages 20 to 21 who had experienced some form of reported violence in a romantic relationship. These included what they reported as verbal, emotional, psychological, and physical violence. The authors framed the issue through patriarchal, as you would expect, norms according to patriarchy, hegemonic masculinity, feminist standpoint theory, and gender theory. Their guiding assumption was that rigid gender norms, traditional gender norms, let's just go ahead and say what it is, that those norms influence men's violent behavior, and that toxic masculinity, again, traditional masculinity, plays a major role in justifying violence in intimate relationships. Results from the interview, those 5 women, identified several recurring behaviors: possessiveness, jealousy, verbal abuse, physical violence, and emotional manipulation. All 5 of the women reported relationship violence of some sort, some capacity from that list. Verbal violence appeared most often, while physical violence appeared less often. Let's say that again for those of you in the back or those of you who spaced out. Verbal violence appeared most often, while physical violence appeared less often. According to the authors, toxic masculinity does not show up only through physical aggression. It can also show up through, as I mentioned, control, jealousy, social restriction, emotional pressure, verbal degradation, and manipulation. So their conclusion is exactly what they were looking for from the beginning. Keep in mind, they did interviews of these women that they pre-selected to participate. Toxic masculinity, rooted in patriarchal gender norms, creates unequal power dynamics in dating relationships. That's basically what they concluded. That's the study. But for me, the important part isn't what they studied or what they reported. It's whether the study was ever designed to find anything else. The design, as I mentioned, was a qualitative interview study. And the design leads straight toward their conclusions before any analysis even began. In no way did they openly test whether masculinity in any form causes relationship violence. They simply selected and spoke to women who already experienced what they referred to as relationship violence, which places those experiences inside, again, a predetermined framework of toxic masculinity. And then, of course, they can claim that toxic masculinity existed in the women's relationships. It's nothing more than a confirmation of what they were already fishing for. So the study really has nothing to do with whether so-called toxic masculinity explains dating violence better than any other possible explanation. Another distinction is that there was no control comparison group. There were no male victims that they spoke with, no non-violent couples, no assessment of the women's own personality traits, propensity toward initiating or escalating any type of abuse, whether physical or otherwise. So we have no idea. Are these women emotionally unstable themselves? Are they jealous, impulsive? Are they horrible at conflict resolution and regulation? We have no clue. So while their conclusion may sound academic and get them praised in a shitty journal like this for the rest of the world to read, none of it explains causation. Nothing at all. They just took a small number of cases, 5 as I mentioned. They applied a predetermined theoretical frame and presented the expected interpretation as if the research uncovered something extraordinary. And that's the central point that I want to make here, that researchers rarely apply the same interest, curiosity, or theoretical implications to women's harmful behavior toward men. They have no problem confirming that possessiveness is a part of the patriarchy, or that jealousy is a sign of toxic masculinity. But when women do those things, or comparable things to men, that rarely gets studied. That's the reality of modern research. It's studies designed to intentionally lead to conclusions that if a man expresses masculinity, it's toxic. But where's the equivalent framework and the theoretical approach for women's relational toxicity? Where's the same institutional curiosity about women who use jealousy, emotional punishment, sexual withdrawal or leverage, coercive crying, and parental alienation for you dads out there, when women use all of those as psychological control and abuse against men? Where's the curiosity there? Those behaviors exist and we all know it. Most of you watching have likely experienced some of those in some form or another. Men talk about it constantly. But academics and researchers rarely treat those women's behaviors with the same theoretical significance as I mentioned. If possessiveness, jealousy, and emotional blackmail are evidence of toxic masculinity when men do them, then researchers should be willing to ask those same questions and dissect those behaviors and what it all means when women do them. Are there female-coded patterns of toxic control, for example? Are there cultural norms that excuse women's manipulation as emotional expression, response to trauma, or justified retaliation? Absolutely there are. And another rhetorical question, are researchers less willing to publish about women's harmful behaviors as culturally meaningful because doing so would disrupt the preferred narrative? Yeah, absolutely. They are less willing to do that. As much as they hate to admit it, likely never will, those are not anti-women questions. They are consistency questions. And this is just a single article in a sea of perhaps millions that offer nothing more than a small, pre-framed qualitative account of 5 young women's dating experiences. In no way does it provide any evidence, strong or otherwise, that toxic masculinity causes relationship violence. The sample's too small, the design's too narrow, and the theoretical framing is predetermined. They got what they were fishing for. So the bigger takeaway is this. If the research world is going to interpret men's harmful behavior through broad cultural theories, then it should be willing to apply the same seriousness and curiosity to women's harmful behavior toward men. Otherwise, what's the point? The field is not simply studying relationship violence. It's confirming their own biases and getting predetermined answers by deciding in advance who's toxic, whose violence is systemic, and which victims deserve a theory. Thanks a lot for sticking around. Don't forget that I'll be streaming live tomorrow to discuss a couple of other topics in addition to the channel's direction. For current members, I'll also be posting a quick video about that for more details, so look for that coming very soon. likely this afternoon, certainly by the evening. All right. Cheers, y'all. I'll see you soon. Hope to see you live.